Welcome back to IntyCenter, our last IntyCenter for spring training. I'm rounding into regular season form. Hopefully your teams are too. But before we start with the weekly recap, just a quick PSA about mental health. I've said it in our thread. I've said it to a few of you personally, but a sincere thank you from the bottom of my heart for everybody who watches these videos, who plays or comments on or just reads our silly game. It does mean a lot to me. I've spoken to my therapist about the impact that this group and this game has had on my mental health, the way that you've buoyed me in bad times, the way you've kept me floating high in high times. It's just been incredible. I know it's a silly game on a Star Wars forum, but all of you mean so very much to me. And speaking of counseling and mental health, if you've never talked to a therapist or if it's been a long time, go talk to one. Whether you feel fine or you don't feel fine, preventative mental health, restorative mental health, and everything in between are incredibly important. Go take care of yourself. If you feel like there's a stigma, talk to somebody. I'm willing to be that somebody if I have to be, and go talk to a professional who can help you get through whatever might be going on with your mental health, whether you realize it or not. With that out of the way, let's talk some baseball. And apparently spring training was coming to an end, but Stone Temple, Seattle Pilots, and the CRX Steel Tiger Cranes, on the last day of spring training, they were not ready for spring training to end, and they got into an absolute classic. We were tied at 4 heading into the 9th when Yadier Molina hit a solo homer in the top of the inning to put the Pilots on top. But Tom would get a double gut punch with one swing of the bat as Ichiro ties it up with a 2-out homer in the bottom of the inning. We go to extras. We go to extra extras. We go to extra extras. The 13th inning. And who else is going to walk it off for the Steel Tiger Cranes but newcomer Buddy Bell? I think I heard my dad crying in the distance. Buddy Bell with the walk-off single. The Tiger Cranes fans go home happy, and the team can go into the regular season with whatever momentum you can get from a spring training game, which honestly shouldn't be all that much. Let's go through the calendar, look at some other performances throughout this last week of spring training. Ron Santo had a couple of homers. He drove in 3 runs on March 23rd for Northern Shores. That same day, Frank Thomas went 3 for 3, and he was a triple away from the cycle for Sithy. A day later, we saw Josh Gibson go 4 for 4 and hit a pair of solo homers. His team lost that game 8-2. Might be a trend we see for Northern Shores this year of Josh Gibson does something amazing. His team loses anyways. He's kind of like the Mike Trout of our league, and gone might be the Anaheim Angels. Sorry, MN Jedi. Love you, buddy. Cherokee Fisher looked great in his last spring training start for the Orange Barrels. He tossed 6 scoreless innings, gave up 1 hit, and struck out 6. Greg Maddux, his last start, 5 shutout innings, 1 hit, 5 strikeouts. Hey, I name dropped him earlier, but he really is a dominant player. Mike Trout with 2 homers on March 26th. That same day, Willie Mays had 3 hits and 3 RBI, including a homer among those. On the second to last day of spring training, King Kelly had himself a 4-hit day. He had a pair of homers in there. And then last day of spring training, the last dominant start of spring training, 5 scoreless innings, 10 strikeouts from the Rocket, Roger Clemens, giving hope to the fans in Dayton, Ohio. Let's look at our standings. We ended up with a 4-way tie for the best record in spring training, with 2 teams from each division standing at 18 and 12. That was the Family Madrigal, Performance Enhancers, Stone Temple, Seattle Pilots, and Amazing being those teams. Only 1 team failed to win at least 10 games in spring training, and that was the Orange Barrels. One thing of note, every team in Sandlot was at least 500 in spring training. And since Bryce isn't in that division, they really should just start chanting SEC, SEC. We have the S for Sandlot. Somebody figure out the E and the C and make it happen. Let's look at our end of spring training leaders and laggards. Ketel Marte with a 448 average led spring training. He also led the way with a 1346 OPS. Stone Temple got to be really happy seeing that. No surprise, Archie Vaughn paces spring training with 9 homers. Also, no surprise, Joe DiMaggio leads the way with 23 RBI. Warren Spahn, he got the spring training ERA title, sporting a nifty 0.66 ERA. Pedro Martinez leads the league with both total strikeouts at 50 and strikeouts per 9 innings at 18. Going to be a long season for batters trying to do anything off Pedro this year, I think. Babe Ruth finishes spring training with 14 innings pitched and no runs allowed. That's the most innings pitched by a pitcher who had no earned runs allowed. Other people on the list, no earned runs, at least 10 innings pitched: Noah Syndergaard, Harry Salisbury, Cliff Lee, Ray Collins, and Flash Gordon. Amazing B update. Chris Hoyles ends spring training with 58 strikeouts and just 98 at-bats. Kevin Mitchell might have somehow had the most disappointing spring training at the plate. He finishes in just 1 hit in 14 at-bats. That 1 hit was a homer, but still, you got to think they were hoping for more in Seattle. Most disappointing on the mound might be Chris Sale. He gave up 26 runs. That's the most anybody gave up in spring training. And he did that in just 20 2/3 innings of work. And maybe the most surprising bit of news from the last week of spring training, Josh Donaldson somehow manages to go the entire week without hitting a batter. Only 3 injuries to add to the list this week, and none of them too bad. Another one for a shack of their own. Booker McDaniel currently day-to-day with a mild hamstring strain. Joe McGinnity of Amazings has flu-like symptoms, but he'll be better in no time. And stop me if you heard this one before. Kerry Wood is pitching for a team in Chicago, and he's injured. That's just a sprained ankle, and he's day-to-day, and should be fine by the time the actual season opens. But still, I'm just saying, Kerry Wood hurt in Chicago, color me shocked. Well, that's going to do it for IntyCenter and spring training. We'll see you again for the regular season. And again, take your mental health seriously. Go talk to a counselor or a therapist. Thanks, everybody.